On YouTube, there was a lot of different speakers out there that were motivational. And it's funny because I heard, it just was random. YouTube presented a video of something you created. And you know what's funny is it really resonated with me. And I was like, this is a really good inspirational speaker. And what I actually didn't remember your name. You said, you know, I'm Angelo the Motivator. I remembered it, but you know, as I went about like my life, probably like 7 months later, I downloaded this app called Pep Talk. And you were on that app. So like there's a whole sequence. So Greg, there's this really cool app called Pep Talk. And it basically is a really awesome app where people can just find inspiration, whether it be in business or art or just motivation. Right. But Angela, you came up, you know, in Pep Talk, and that's where I started to listen to everything that you had on Pep Talk. And I was like, this is really good stuff. And what I was thinking is like, you're almost like there's people out there like Les Brown. I almost feel like you fall into that category of like, you're trying to go that route with your inspiration.
First of all, thanks for saying that, you know, kind words, you know, really kind words. So thank you for that. So here's an interesting, so as of 3 months ago, I became the head of content at Pep Talk as well too. So when you probably heard myself, I wasn't actually the head of anything there. I was just working on motivation and other sort of businesses. So funny enough, a client of mine called and said, hey, listen, you're on Pep Talk. I said, what is Pep Talk? Found out what Pep Talk was. I realized, you know, this is the future of this, what you described, this idea of this motivation space. How do I start my day? This extra leg, extra boost sort of thing. It's the future of that. We reached out, this work together, and long story short, we came together. So that's what I'm doing there with Pep Talk currently. So it's interesting. This Pep Talk seems to be everywhere. But beyond that, man, no, the content is, you know, it's one thing to be running late, and it's a whole other thing to be out of time. You know, and I think that's where a lot of people are. We're out of time. You know, so the tolerance, I think, for shallow help is not really there. And when I started about two and a half years ago, that's what I was running into, a lot of shallow help. You know, you always had your traditional deep thinkers. You know, you could run and you could find Alan Watts on the web, you can do whatever. But those guys aren't really that accessible unless you're really into that sort of thing. But what was accessible was really shallow. You know, you got people going through depression and real mental health issues or just major life challenges. And the first thing we do, because we're taught to do this, is to go on Google and figure something out, depression or how do I get over divorce or heartbreak or something. And what you find there is shallow stuff. Well, at least when we started, it just made you feel good for a bit. And I said, all right, if I'm going to do something like this, how would I do it? You know, it would be something I would love to give myself, something deeper that says, look, I may not be a therapist, but let me get there with you. Let me take you a step farther. You know, so we started working on stuff. So I got together with all the YouTube producers and figured out how do we take this to another level. The idea was, yeah, let's keep on this path called Motivation HQ. And the idea is to sort of go deeper, go the Tony Robbins way and not something that just sounds like it's just some feel good stuff. It's layered. It's not just one level. There's sub levels and it's sort of done by design.
What motivated you to even create these videos? What was it when you first started?
My inspiration was, I think it was failure, man. It was, so I was a banker in Boston. We're right there in the thick of things, man. We're doing these commercial real estate deals. I mean, big time deals, right? Like $600-700 million deals, lending the top mezzanine equity debt portion of things, you know, working with Donald Trump's guys over there in New York, just a big exposure. And I remember starting, and we were taking jets everywhere to go see properties and yada yada. And in 2009, I remember not being able to get my freaking taxi receipt approved for reimbursement. You know, the world crashed. I mean, you know, it was a stock price was $62 a pop. It ended up at $2 a pop. And I got a first-hand view of bad behavior. You know, you're a kid in university, you want to go be a banker, you want to do all this stuff in finance, and you get there and realize it's not what it sold itself as, you know? Bad behavior over the place. I just felt like I need to do something that's a bit more human, that allows you to touch more of yourself. This whole banking thing is cool. It taught me something, but there is more to it. I grew up in the Midwest. I was born in Nigeria, moved to Ohio when I was 10. So I grew up in the Midwest. And the whole American dream is real out there. You work hard, you do what you're supposed to do, you get your reward. And I think in 2008 and 9, we saw that wasn't true at all. The dream was questionable at best. So I started a greeting card company. Now this is a card company that could sit on the shelf next to Hallmark and Papyrus. I mean, you let's say you're married 20 years, your partner, whatever, you come home, you give a card on the birthday or on an anniversary. It doesn't really say much on these cards. So I wanted to create something that talked about the experience of 20 years, for example. So what would you give somebody like that? Imagine opening up a card and the card read, words are simple things that masquerade what your smile means to me. After all, how precisely can I describe what air means to fire or what forever means to love? You give that to somebody after 20 years of relationship. You don't have to be holding hands every day or kissing every day, but they know that you see them, So we did that whole thing, and that evolved into a tech company that was really trying to figure out the question, how do you create emotionally aware environments? We put the thesis out there, we worked it out, raised a bunch of capital, and we were too early. We were posting emotion or sentiment on Facebook before Facebook was doing that, right? We were too early, burned through the cash. Long story short, I ended up in my mother-in-law's basement, new kids on the way, no idea what to do. I couldn't even get a job, a full-time job. I was working part-time as a mailman, and nothing against mailmen, but I have 2 degrees, and it's just like that. This is what I could do, different country. So when all this was crashing, I'm coming right to your question, but when all this was crashing down, right? No gig, no real money, no money, new kids in the way. I remember being at the corner of my bed, at the edge of my bed, asking myself, what are you going to do now? What's next? What are you going to do now? Because you feel like giving up. Literally everything had fallen apart, And I was in that corner of my bed looking at myself, and I got up. Something just said, get up. I walked right to the mirror and asked myself, do you still have a dream? Do you still have a dream? And I heard it, and I said, yeah. And it took me back to when I was a kid, when I just moved to the States from America. It was around November and rolling through December and coming up in February. Everybody was getting excited because we were kids. We were going to watch some speaker called Martin Luther King talk about something. I didn't know what they were talking about, but the kids knew. It was the I Have a Dream speech, and they played the thing, and he crescendoed at I have a dream, and everybody was, I said, great. That didn't mean anything to me. But I always remembered something he said. He said, I still have a dream. I don't know why. But as I got older, went to university, it was interesting because I always remember that phrase, I still have a dream. So it wasn't until I was sitting on the edge of my bed and I moved to the bathroom mirror and asked myself, do you still have a dream? That it all made sense to me. Because no matter, it's easy to have a dream. Everybody can say I have a dream. But when the obstacles come, when the hard times come, when the divorces come, when the repossessions come, the disease and cancers and all that, when that stuff comes, can you gather yourself and say, do you still have a dream? And if you can say yes, then you have work to do. And that's where I was in front of that mirror. And that day, that's the exact day I picked up a pen. I started writing. I said, I'm just going to do something. Turned the camera on and recorded something. It's still on YouTube. I remember, I think I got like 1 view or 12. I don't know what it was. Like my mom and my aunt or something, leaving comments. It's okay. Don't worry. Nobody's going to, doesn't matter if 1,000 people see this. We see it's like 2 views for the longest time. But it was just all my manifesto. And ever since then, I just started going and really trying to get deeper into topics. Not deep as to lose you, but deep as to say, hey, listen, what you're going through is real and somebody understands it from multiple dimensions. Let's keep going, sort of thing. So that's a long story to get to a very quick question, a short question. But that's sort of the history of why I can do this whole thing anyway. And I've been doing it for about 2.5 years.
So it sounds like you have a past. It sounds like you came from multiple places. You went to business school, is that right?
Yeah, I went to business school. I have a master's in finance.
Okay, so you went into so originally you were doing finance, so like
yeah, absolutely, the high octane stuff,
like spreadsheets and numbers and
absolutely deals, spread the whole routine, private jets to go see clients, things like that. But I was in the commercial real estate side of things. So yeah, spreadsheets all day, looking at deal books, acquisition, all that, working with investment bankers to figure out, how do certain assets or securities go into this portfolio? What should we look? The whole routine, the whole rigmarole. So that was my world for, I think I graduated university when I was about 21, and that was my world for about 5 years. So in that space, you really, you're a kid. You get out of school, you're a kid. It's banking. Who doesn't want to do banking? It's this prestigious thing. You get in there, you have all these expectations. And then you get to see people at their true selves when a crisis hits. You get to really see people. And through that, I saw myself and I realized I can't do another 5 years here. There must be something more. So that's that side of that was sort of the immediate impact of, look, there's more humanity to explore. Let's go do that. But my background before that was really, I was born in Nigeria, whole different culture, very, very personal little family around the place, economic disaster, political disaster. So we left, we had sort of these political refugee sort of things, and landed in Cleveland, in the in the interesting neighborhoods of Cleveland. Had to start again, reacclimate again, and did the whole thing there. So it's funny. People say, "Yo, where you from?" People want to know where am I from. You hear me speaking and say, "Yo, where you from?" And for me, that's not the important question. The important question becomes, where have you been? Imagine from Nigeria to Cleveland, to Washington D.C., to Boston, now to Stockholm. So I'm a product of all those experiences. I think it shows up in what I have to say. It shows up in my voice, in my attitude. But there's a story there. But it's what I'm interested in is really other people's story, because there is no doubt that people are out of time, and that's the sense of urgency people are feeling these days. I'm out of time. So every year I try to come up with some topic to talk about. A couple of years ago, it was time to change. Last year was better choices. So we're out of time, and we have to behave as if we're out of time. Know that, go forward with some level of degree of eagerness to attack some of these issues we're going with. Childhood traumas and depressions and all these things are showing up in different ways. We keep fighting the symbols and not the issue. So my whole gig is to really, and here's the sort of sub message, I'm really trying to help people become practical players of the inner game. And if you've read that book by Tim Caldwell, about he was a tennis coach. I'm not sure if you guys know that book.
I don't.
Yeah, Tim Caldwell. No, not Caldwell. Tim Gallwey, rather. Gallwey, pro tennis coach in, I think, 60s, 70s. He wrote a book called The Inner Game, and how tennis is not just this outward physical thing. It's actually, he really started sounding very spiritual, It's a whole spiritual experience. So he really taught a lot of his players to approach tennis from an inner perspective and not just the outer perspective. Got tremendous results. So I brought that phrase, the inner game. So how do you become a practical player of the inner game? We all know the outer game, right? It's like, hey, my foot hurts. Guess what? Put your foot up, rest. My tooth hurts. Guess what? Go to the dentist. Get that taken care of. Well, there's some stuff going on the inside as well, too. How do you play that game?
Yeah.
That's the thing people don't have, because we're terrified of our emotions. We think they're somehow going to gain wings and fly off with the bats or something, if we actually look at the stuff. But that's the real thing, yeah. I always seen myself as making a beyond average impact on the people around me. That was the thing. It was never, I'm not that guy that you bring around because, we're going to have a bunch of great laughs. I'm going to have some beers or something. No, I'm that guy that shows up when there's an answer that you need, and you need it quickly and you need it meaningfully. So I've always seen myself doing that on a bigger scale. It's always been some sort of natural ability I've had to just do it ever since I was a little kid. And I thought I would do it through finance. I always thought, hey, I'll make a bunch of money and I'll go help a bunch of people, right? I'll start a bunch of funds and a bunch of foundations, and I'll go back to Nigeria and do this and do that. The whole thing. That was my path, because I realized that it's more taxing. I made a lot of money, but it was so taxing. I think it cost me more, right, to gain what was in my bank account. It cost too much inside. So the dream was still that. How do you make an impact? How do you make a real impact? I'm sitting here. I got a third kid on the way, unexpected one, in my mother-in-law's basement. I can't get a job, in a new country. Like, what, how are you going to make this happen? Do you still have this dream? And the answer came back, yes. So the job became, well, go figure it out. I know you have everything you need to go figure it out. So get it. So that was my whole thing. And as soon as I told myself yes, it became, all right, impact is not this. You don't have to be Mahatma Gandhi or anything like that. Dude, who's next to you? And so really and truly, I went to I didn't have enough money, so I couldn't go to the gym, so I was outside in the kids' playground, doing pull-ups and all that kind of stuff. And these neighborhood kids, teenagers, would see me and say, "What are you doing?" And they'll join me, and we start talking, and they'll reveal certain things. They're having issues at school, or with bullying, or with just relationships. And as we're lifting, we're talking, and I noticed, I was really impacting these kids. So that turned me on again. Oh, there it is, another one. So make impact right here. So from that, it just went on. So I don't have to be rich. I don't have to have all these different things. I can be right here with a person, a human being next to me. And as long as I'm able to live my dream through helping them, I'm tasting my dream. What else is there? And with that attitude, it just grew and grew and grew. And next thing you know, the videos doing millions of views and so on and so forth. And clients are calling. So that's where it came from. That's the mindset I was in at the time in the mirror.
Where did the next step go? You just sort of went out into the neighborhood, like out on the street almost, and started talking to just random people and kind of giving them advice and helping them with life problems, or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the next step was a hard step for me because one of my things, I mean, Daniel, I'm sure you guys going down a path that it seems that you're on, you know how it happens. You start having to confront certain issues, certain limitations you've had. You know, it's like each month there's a new sort of breakthrough. So for me, my whole thing was vulnerability. You know, I had these vulnerability issues, right? I mean, I grew up in Nigeria. It's a very male-dominated country, you know, with a lot of power and strength. You know, my father is a strong guy. This guy got shot in the head, right? He got shot right in his eye. The bullet is still there. You can see it, you can feel it. He didn't die, came back. So that's who my father was, right? Imagine being a kid, and this is Terminator. They call the guy Terminator, you know? So this power, and when you have that sort of power, it's for protection. You never really learn to evolve outside of that. So that's how I grew up, and it's great because it gets you confident. It gets you looking at life as I'm going to go take it down. But along the way, you start breaking things. You lose things, you know, because you don't trust anybody. And when things are breaking around you, you look around you and say, well, how did I get here? Well, I got here because of my opinions. Nobody else's opinions are here. You lose relationships. So I had to, and part of how I mastered my skill set was that I started with these long, because I'm also a philosopher, right? So I started with these long philosophical posts on YouTube that were, I guess, subconsciously but intentionally designed to hide access to me, right? So here's what I'm saying. I was hiding behind words. And if you're going to do this work sincerely, you have to be able to be vulnerable, meaning you have to let people in. And to do that, you have to let people out, meaning there's a pure exchange here, in and out. You can't sit here as the guru dispensing advice without actually having to deal with your own issues. So the next step was a hard one because I had to become a bit more vulnerable. It wasn't an overnight thing, but here's what I meant. I'd never put my face on YouTube or anything like that before, but I picked up a phone and recorded myself, basically my introduction to this game. Terrifying because, you know, that's, you know, I'm actually an introvert, you know, you would know it, but I'm actually an introvert, and that's a terrifying thing, you know, to be there talking to the world. Even if your mom and your aunt are the only people who see it, it's still a terrifying prospect. So I started there, sweating the whole time. And then outside, just training and exercising, the kids would come up, and I wasn't looking for them, but they would come up and we just talk. And that's one thing. Once I'm with a human being, I don't care if I'm an introvert or not, but you're next to me and you have an issue, we're going at it. So that was the simple part, but it was the other part because this is a technical world. If you're not online, you're not anywhere. So it started with that one video, still online there, and then gradually trying to get the craft to be more meaningful, to be helpful, so to get to people like you who hear it and say, whoa, there is something in here that's for me. I don't know what it is, but something in here is for me. It doesn't quite sound like anything I've heard before. Something in here is for me. And that was the whole thing. You know, my Instagram handle is called Curiosity Gospel. People think I'm a preacher, you know, so they think, I don't want this religious stuff around me because I call it the gospel. I call it gospel only because, you know, like Eric Thomas, for example, this guy, I'm not sure if you guys know him, but his whole gospel is a gospel of grind. Go out there and grind. Thank God it's Monday, grind. You know, Les Brown, who you mentioned, he's all about a dream. He has a gospel of dreams, you know, the follow your dreams, chase your dreams. Mine is a gospel of curiosity. A gospel means good news. So it's the good news about curiosity. And that basically means this, you know, there's something else in you. There's something else in you. And that's what I'm speaking to the people. When I speak to anybody, whether it's just one-on-one or just the videos, whatever, it's that whole thing. What else is in you? Because that's the same question I have to ask myself. What else is in me? Now I'm sitting here, I got nothing left, quote unquote. I got nothing. Everything is falling apart. But what else is in me? There's something else there. And once you begin to ask that question, if you let it, you'll almost hear a whisper tell you where to go. Go here, take left, you know, do this, do that kind of thing. And if you follow that, you realize, like, my God, look where I've ended. How did all this happen? You know, because there's something else in you. There's something else in you. That thing will respond to your depression. It will respond to your heartbreak. It will respond to all these things, all these limitations, all your negative self-talk. It will respond to that directly. But you've got to start feeding that thing. What else is in me? So that's what I do. My gospel is one of curiosity. It's not a religious thing. Some people think that, but it's not. I think the different levels of out of time. There's some people who they need an uncle. Eric Thomas is like your uncle who's a no-nonsense uncle. It's like, hey, I don't play that crap. Here's the deal. Get up, stand up, get your butt up. That's sort of his big. And he can use his voice in a way, and he can throw his emotion in a way that just feels like, whoa, I have no excuses here. It's like Gary Vaynerchuk. He's another kind of guy.
Did he make Wine Library or?
Yeah, that guy.
Okay, yeah.
Wine Library, VaynerMedia. The guy is like Mr. Internet. So we did a video. I did a video sort of just describing why he's so powerful. His team reached out to me and said, "Hey, guy, this is on point." But people like that, he's meeting you at different points. So I'm meeting people at this point where it's like, okay, I've heard that, I've heard this, but there's something else I haven't heard yet, and it goes back to this whole curiosity thing about me. So yeah, and I think it's effective to have sort of people coming at it from different places, because we're all at different spots, trying to get to the same place, but starting at different spots.
So it sounds like this sort of this vision you had or dream, well, it came in part from your almost subconscious, like this inner voice speaking to you about like what that dream might be, but then also came from like actual experience, like out in the neighborhood, like trying to help kids that were exercising and maybe came to you with problems and you'd give them advice. Do you remember some specific like cases with those children who had problems and that looked to you for help?
Yeah, sure. There was a guy, great guy, but just a poor self-image, poor self-image, and self-image is everything. Self-image is self-talk, self-image is reality. So I'm talking to this guy, and we're lifting. I have my tight stuff on, and my muscles are rippling, all that kind of stuff. And he shows up, and he's just there. I could see he was just there watching. Just watching, and after a while, it got sort of awkward. This is Sweden. Sweden, you don't gawk in Sweden. You don't do that. It's very, I get you one bread, one butter, keep the line moving kind of thing. You don't want to expose yourself too much. You kind of look at the corner of your eye and keep walking. But this kid was there, he was just hanging out. So I thought I said, this is unusual. So I said, there's something that's speaking to this kid right now. He doesn't look like he's fit. He doesn't have that self-image. I said, why are you hanging out over there? what do you want to rep? Do you want to jump in here? I said, no. I said, why not? He said, no, I'm just watching you because you look good doing it. You look just like you know what you're doing. I said, you've been there for 5 minutes. There's something more than that. Sweden, they speak sweet English over here, so this is a conversation that was happening very fluidly. So I said, there's something more than that. Like, what would you be doing right now if you were me? Just to kind of probe the guy a bit. And he said, well, I'm not you. I'm never going to be you. So it's not a good question, I said, well, there you go. I said, why couldn't you be me? And we start like that. So you discover the part that here's a guy who really, his whole self-image comes from, when he was a kid. He was always told he was chubby, stop eating all the chocolates, yada, yada, yada. And that, of course, has this negative impact. So he sees himself as somebody who will never be fit. So there's no point. But when I saw this kid standing back, looking at me, there was something in him saying, that's for me. No, that thing there is for me. Because I'm telling you, the context of the society we live in does not allow you to really sit there and watch a person. So for him to do that was a big step. It told me something major. So we started talking, and that's the gig. So I work with a kid. I said, come on. I didn't tell him I was going to work with him. I said, come here. I'll show you how to lift yourself up. I'll show you how to do this. And we train. So he jumps on. 6 months later, the kid is ripped. Is ripped, and that's what was speaking to him. And of course, being ripped isn't the point, but the point is the self-confidence. That's what he needed. He was a confident kid when he was a little kid. It was something his grandmother told him at 7 years old. Because we started talking, so probably about 4 months in, he pinpointed it down. The grandmother used to give all the cousins candy and take everything from me. Right? Imagine that you're 7 years old, your grandma was giving all these kids, and your grandma trying to make sure, trying to help him, but as a kid, that sticks with you. So he had been reacting from the 7-year-old self the whole time, So what we were doing there by virtue of training, hanging out, talking was really allowing him to get to work off that emotional body. That's what it was. So, after a while, your mind becomes your body. The body, I should say, the body becomes a mind. This is what happens when you repeat certain thoughts. Your body becomes mind. So you start eating, and that's your mind. So we worked. So we had a therapy session essentially. So stuff like that. That was one clear example I remember, because the kid was just gawking. So what is going on here? So that's one.
So it's almost like the kid. He was watching you and just sort of observing you because you were in the same space there. Was that in Stockholm?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And then he kind of admired like what you could do as far as like lifting the weights and kind of how strong and confident you seemed. And then you became almost like a father figure in a way, like.
No, actually, here's what happens. This is the way he saw himself, right? So he when he goes home, the self-talk, his self-image is of something that somebody told him he was. So he'd been living that for, what was it? I don't know, 8 years, 9 years. When he saw me, he finally got a taste of himself. He said, "That's me. There's something about that dude doing this. That's me. I don't know what it is, but there's something in it that's for me." That's what he saw. So it wasn't like it became a paternal sort of figure or some role model. He saw himself. And that's what it takes. I mean, that's what we do. That's why we read books. That's why we fall in love, all that stuff, because there's something in that for me. There's something in that I recognize myself, and I'm going after that. That's why, so yeah, sometimes it's through his father figure, but this kid saw himself. So that's who I'm supposed to be. And it wasn't a ripped person per se. It was a confident person, because that's what it is. I mean, Tony Robbins talks about it all the time, about how movement says a lot about who you are, how movement can change your entire attitude, your behavior, things like that. So he's seeing that, and all I represented to him was confidence, and that's who he knew he always was. And 6 months later, yeah, he had the body to prove, but he walked differently, he moved differently, he spoke up. You could see his whole chest, not because he had muscles on his chest. It's just he had a whole different aura about himself. And that's all it took.
So by like changing, by impacting him and helping him, it was done by you helping him discover something in himself that he didn't realize he had, in a way. And it wasn't like you were telling him like, here's how you do this, here's how you can be like me and be great. But instead it was like, that was already inside him, and you helped to like make him have awareness and kind of act on that and strengthen that.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like finding your car keys. It's like when you lose your keys and you finally find them, or you finally remember where you kept them. Like, oh, that's right. In the kitchen. It was like that. So he always had that. He had it up until he was 7. He didn't know he was a chubby kid. He didn't know there was an issue with weight. He didn't know any of that stuff until he was 7. So he had it. So from 7 to 17 or whatever it was, or 16 or whatever it was, he was living with somebody else's image of himself. So when he saw me, he found his car keys. Now if you find your car keys, it's no big deal. But at the end of the day, it's also a big deal too, right? Because now you can get from point A to point B fast. You can explore more territory. There's more. You have more options. So that's what it is. And I think when I speak to people, I'm trying to speak to that side of themselves that they've either ignored or they have somehow convinced themselves isn't real. So when I speak to people, it's speaking to that aspect again. What else is in you? Go back and listen to that thing that's in you, because this thing I'm doing, you can do it too. You can do it, and maybe even better,
How do you draw that out? Do you draw that out with questions, or do you draw it out by like making statements and then kind of see how they respond?
It depends on the situation. So if I have clients calling, because I have a clientele, so we have a conversation. First, there's always the introductory email. I watch how people write about themselves. I always say, "Tell me about you." You can always tell a lot by how people write about themselves. Even handles they choose, nicknames they use, things like that. And then we start talking, and so the first issues they talk about are very key for me. What's the first thing on your mind? Hey, I have an issue. Here's what I want to solve. Or some people never talk. Some people just want you to talk. Some people just want to be heard. And all these things are building this image in my mind of this person. Here's who you are, And then we go in, and it becomes this dialogue that's creating. We co-create the issue to explore, kind of thing. But they tell me everything that I need to know. So in the clientele, but I talk to people in the bus stop, for example, or at my kids' school. You'd be surprised how many people come up to me and we just engage. Just my first week, I dropped my kids in a new school. I was talking to a lady about her relationship with her marriage, and it was just, to the outsider, it's strange. to me, it's normal kind of thing. So I think part of something I have is this idea of people. I look like a mystery at times, but the interaction I have with people is very direct and deep, and they start telling me things. It happened. It's always been like that ever since I was a kid. People start telling me things, and nothing wrong with that. It's what I respond to, you know. So it depends. It depends how it happens. It happens in different ways multiple times. In the videos, I don't talk about anything I haven't been through. So that aspect of authenticity is always going to play well, because if you've been through it and you're telling someone about it and they're going through it, they'll connect like that. You don't have to sell them on anything.
How did the process work to, in a way, scale up that impact? Because you went from that sort of micro experience with the kid watching you lift weights and things to now making videos and like impacting a lot of people on the internet. Like, it must be difficult, because when you're speaking to that one kid, you're able to like listen to him, ask questions, and like see how he responds. But through the videos, you're trying to impact a lot of people, and you have no idea really how they're responding or what they're thinking or what their background is. What's your process you go through on doing that?
The process, man, and that's a great question. The process is, again, to play this in a game, because the idea is that, I said it before, you can't do this job well unless the job is working on you too. So as I'm doing all this stuff, my world is also shifting, for the good, for the bad, for just, it's shifting, it's moving around, it's stirring up dust, you know, things I have to start looking at. You know, certainly the vulnerability issue was one, and that played out in many symbols in my world, you know. So what I had to do to be able to produce content like that, I had to actually engage in my world, in the things I hadn't looked at as well too. So certain situations with certain people, you know, I would listen. Let's say I would get angry before. You know, I say, okay, fine, you can get angry. That's easy. That's standard. That's your body being your mind. That's the body turning into the mind. Great. What else is there? What else can this experience do for you, you know? And you start hearing more. What's the anger all about? And you start tracing these things back, like, wow, okay, here's how I react in certain situations because of X, Y, Z. Like for me, I love to be on time, right? I make it it's a ritual for me to be on time. And I got 3 kids. So guess what the morning looks like? All right, taking people to school. No one's on time. It's always just a mess, you know, it's just there. And then even if you get out the door and you're like, ooh, I have a good time. Somebody forgot something, they have to run back in. And it's a major event. And I forgot my doll, I gotta go back. The whole routine. So one way I would do that initially was just to blow up, like, but I realized, like, dude, it's daycare. They're not missing anything. They're not missing, you know, a final exam. What is this whole thing about, you know? What is this real thing about? So those sort of situations would come up. And every time they would come up, I would take that as an opportunity to take, at least go one step further with myself, right? And say, okay, let's go to the root of this whole thing. Certain things like, excuse me, I didn't have a gig, you know, so my wife, she used to wait. It was a bit easier for her to get a gig. So she got a full-time gig. And for the first time, the roles were reversed. So the pressures of role reversal. All of a sudden, now I'm in the house. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's just, I don't know what to do in the house. I'm like, so, you know, I got kids. I got to take them to school, pick them up and cook and do all this stuff. And I got my daughters want to play this tea game with you. And they want to do things with you. And you got to bake cookies. And it just wasn't my scene. So I remember for months, I just couldn't get with that. So there was this opposition to that whole thing. Not because I believe in gender roles. I just wasn't used to that whole thing. And then I said, you know what? I can do better here. I can make better lunches. I can make better dinners. I can even learn how to bake some brownies. I can do all that stuff. Why aren't you doing it? You know, are you hiding behind the pressures of role reversal here? Because, oh, you want to be out there. You want to be out there looking for work. You've tried everything. Nothing has happened. What are you going to do now? Okay, let me maximize the value of this moment right now. So guess what I started doing? Started making better lunches, started playing all those little tea games and doing the things with the kids, baking cookies, all that jazz, you know, having good dinner. And I was enjoying the experience, and even more, I was enjoying them enjoy the experience too. And I got a lot of value from that. And I realized, look, there's more. So all these things were happening in my world, and I'll be taking lessons from that and moving them into the speeches. So it allowed me to go deeper into see, once you're doing it authentically, you're not guessing. You're talking about where you've been. Now, if you have a gift of being able to convey that idea, it becomes even more impactful. But I don't talk about things I haven't been through. That's my gig.
Well, I'm really fascinated by how you've taken this realization that you had the dream of helping people, impacting people, and kind of changing lives when people are maybe going on in a wrong, not a, like less than optimal direction. But then taking that and sort of making a living off of it, and like adding entrepreneurship to the mix. How did you go from that moment of like the selfie, cell phone, first video to now where you're at now, like making a living off of that?
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing is impact. It's like, oh, this is I finally found my impact. Right now, there's a lot of work I have to do to maintain that, as I was just talking to you guys about, right? In terms of, hey, how do you properly engage with the issues in your world now that you're moving into this space, right? The space will move into you as well too, good and bad. How do you deal with that? Okay, so yeah, I found my impact, and that's a big thing. So I'm also a business student, right? I mean, I'm a finance guy. I've always been a business kid, right from hustling on the street as a little kid. I've always had that. So my whole thing is about, now how do you scale this? How do you scale this? And I always have a bunch of guys around me who are just, again, business people who are, you mentioned one idea, I talk to this guy about the seed. He tells me about the entire forest sort of thing, So they've always been around me. And I want to scale this for selfish reasons, right? Again, I think we're out of time. We have to offer more, right, of ourselves. At the same time, if I'm going to do this well, I need to do it excellently. Great. That means I have to dedicate my entire self to this whole thing. Guess what? This has to become the 9 to 5. It has to become the 7 to 2. It has to become all that stuff. It has to become the 3 a.m. phone calls with some kid in Dubai who feels like killing himself right now. And that just happened a couple of days ago. So to do that properly and not destroy the life I've built, you have to have balance. You have to have management. You have to have a system. You really have to have a process. So as soon as I figured it out that this was my impact, I set up a process around my impact. That's the key. Set up a process around your impact, because if you can't do that, you destroy whatever value you're trying to offer and whatever value you've created. Right? This is where people get sick. This is where people just go off in the deep end. They either get too spiritual or they get too technical or whatever, or they start. It's small drips of stuff that ruins your family life. It's taking the one phone call here, answering the one email there. Next thing, your kid's out there playing ball against the wall by himself, and you're like, yo, okay, this isn't what I signed up for, but I'm stuck. I don't know how to get out of it. So set up a process around the impact, and just coming out of the business world and other entrepreneurial ventures, I already had the mind frame for that. So setting that up was easy. It was just the hardest part about this whole thing is staying true to the call of impact. That is the hardest thing. You think you have it today just to be slapped with a new issue tomorrow that questions everything you just put out there. That's the thing. And the layers that show up, things you're not even thinking about. Like I didn't even realize I was doing that, or I didn't realize that was the sort of impact that I was making. Do I want that? And then releasing some of this stuff. It's the payoff for holding on to some of these bad habits or negative thoughts. It's too much sometimes to give up. You want to hold on to because you've known them for 20 something years or 32 years. You've known them, they've been with you, they've comforted you, and now I have to give this up. Yes, you do. If you want to go to the next level, if you want to really be able to help somebody out, because people call me up and say, listen, I'm at the end of my road. I got 3 kids and I have no idea what to do. I looked at the pills, in a very interesting way this morning, and the only thing that stopped me is because I heard my kid asking for bread. More bread. That was only, and this is a conversation that happened right before summer, and you hear that. I don't take that on. I don't carry that burden, but I do think it's a responsibility because this is a role I've stepped into. So people saying I never thought I'd get here. This is why we did the video on depression and suicide. Because of the situation like this. People will call you and just, I've hit the end of my road. I don't know what. These aren't broke people. These are like successful people. These are, when you talk to them, on the outside, like, wow, what happened? You have everything going on. You just paid me, $4,000 for this, package. What, you have all this stuff. What's going on? And it goes back to the same thing. They're stuck somewhere. And the separation that they feel on the inside becomes the isolation that they experience on the outside. This is huge. This is Demi Lovato, right? Somebody who's so successful and all of a sudden drug issues and so on and so on. This is what's happening. This level of separation, so this is for specific cases like addiction and things like that. The root cause of addiction is loneliness. When you actually get down to it, it's loneliness. But there's all this disguise around the whole thing why it's not loneliness. But it is. There are elements of yourself, aspects of your personalities that are not being expressed, that have been, I hate to use the word, but suppressed, because environment will always push out the personality you're going to express. And when you've been told you're this, you're that, certain parts get really quiet. They don't go away. They're still there. It's like the kid that's tugging at your garment for attention. You never pay attention to the kid. Kid's still there. So all that stuff becomes the separation that you experience in the inside. Boom, it becomes the isolation that happens on the outside. All these, another young rapper just killed himself or overdosed last week. And you see these patterns over and over and over again. And to play a role in affecting that thing, you have got to be willing to stay on your path and keep doing the work and go in and go further and go in and go further. Not losing yourself completely, but just being really realistic about the cost of having an impact. I mean, you guys entrepreneurs, you know the deal. It's like there's a cost to having impact, a major cost.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were saying like your process for getting stuff done, people talk about work-life balance. And then I heard like a really successful person say, no, it's work-life integration. There's a way to be an entrepreneur. Maybe people don't talk about that also. That's for like 3 kids and produce those videos. You figured out a way to like do more with, you only get 24 hours in a day.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Absolutely. That's why I talked about the importance of creating a process around your impact. Tony Robbins is exactly perfect when it comes to this whole thing, right? If you look at, that's what his impact, from the early days of doing the infomercials and all that stuff, you saw this guy working and working and working, and he created a process around his impact. It's absolute. It's so clean and packaged, and that allows him to be spontaneous because the process around him is corporate. He can actually pull himself. It's like, to start a business, what do? You don't create a business so you can stay there and run every element of it. You create a business so that you can step away and the business goes on without you. That's what you do. So that's what he's done, and it allows him to, in his shows, he's so spontaneous. He can go up to a crowd and just talk the way other speakers can't talk to people, just one-on-one and have these real moments because he's not pulled apart by all the activity around this process. It's like, no, the impact as a process, all I have to do is just keep refining the impact, refining it and elevating it. That's what I have to do. So you're right. It's about integration. There's no real, if you look for balance, you're going to get yourself in trouble. It's about how do I integrate this thing properly, efficiently, in a way that makes sense, in a way that keeps what I've built valuable, meaning health, meaning family, meaning friendships, meaning all that jazz. That's the thing. And it takes some moving around and dancing around, and there's some peaks and lows and troughs and all that stuff. But that's it. I like the word. It's integration. It really is that. But if it's worth it, you'll find a way to do it.
Who would you say is a person that you look to and you really respect? You look at them and you go, how do they do that?
It's funny. For me, it's always some kind of a single mother. It's I don't have these massive idols and all that stuff like that. I really don't. I'm not. That's my thing. I'm not impressed with all that kind of stuff. It doesn't impress me. I love the unnoticed story, the nuance, right? That's in the drama. That's what I look for, and it's always the single mother. Let me say the archetype of the single mom. But let's just say that because it's very difficult for a woman to raise a man. It's very difficult. I don't care what we say about this new age, whatever jazz. It's all good, but it's very difficult. What you end up seeing is a lot of women are raising boys that turn into men they can't stand. Because how do I raise a man? And you see a lot of men who want to be fathers but can't be fathers. They don't know how to be fathers. So they end up leaving a trap that these women have to claw their way out of. And all the pressures of just being human, number one, that's enough. But then a person who's been quote unquote abandoned with a situation, and then you're dedicated to the situation, not knowing a lot of times how to do it. So I mean, the degrees of it, obviously you can look at the single mother with 5 kids in the projects, or you can look at the single mother in Bel Air with freaking, 1 kid, but there's still something there. So that archetype has always been something that I admire, because you really have to go create magic. and you can see the source of energy is that I'm doing this for somebody else. I'm doing this for somebody else. That's selflessness. I think I'm attracted to that, in a major sort of way. So I learned a lot of lessons from that, just looking at that, studying that. So people would say, "Oh, I thought you were going to say Tony Robbins or Les Brown or something." No. I mean, those guys have done it. They've done that. They've put the blueprint down. It's not a mystery. What remains a mystery to me is those people who are doing it on just that thing of, hey, I'm doing this for you, so I'm going to wait. That's why I'm up in the morning. You see these women, it's like they've given up. I mean, you're a woman, you have all these dreams, what it could have been, the family life, all this. But no, your nails aren't done, your hair isn't done. You're just trying to get out the house, do this, do that, come home. It's 9 o'clock. You're helping someone with homework. You're exhausted yourself. 10 o'clock, you still haven't had dinner. 11 o'clock, maybe the kids are finally in bed. Yeah. Now it's 1 o'clock, and you're gonna figure. The whole.
How do you personally stay true to your call of impact? Like, do you have visualizations you do, or do you have some kind of compass to give you feedback if you're off track?
But my whole thing is once I realized, hey, here's my impact, here's my thing, here's the dream I'm chasing. It boiled down to a very simple equation for me. And it's something you read, in the back of the dollar bill, right? It's out of many, we are one. Out of many, we are one. And I remember the mission. So I very, very, very much hold this idea that I'm on a mission here. I have a mission because how you get to a certain level and you start operating with a different sort of mind, a mind that doesn't feel like it's yours sometimes, meaning you feel like you're really getting inspired by everything and everyone around you, people who've been come before you. And for me, it's this reminder of you're on a mission. And what's that mission? Out of many, we are one. Out of many. So I tell myself every day, I say, out of many, we are one. So that is sort of like an armor. I hate to use the word armor because it always provokes attack, but that's sort of the armor that I use to prime myself, right? Out of many, because if we are one, it sounds corny, but it's deep. If we are one, then that means when you cut me off in traffic and flip me the bird, do all sorts of things, that's just me. And this is where it gets into the end of the game, right? That's just me having a bad day. And to really feel that. It's not just, see, people say that, and they just say that because it's cute. It's nice to say, oh, we're one, this whole kumbaya thing. No, that realization is called love. And that love is not a soft, fluffy, pink thing. It's a tough, difficult thing, right? Here's love, right? People think love is about, I have my child, I have my wife, I love my baby, I love my child. That's all good. That's level one. That's basic, right? That stuff is in your DNA. That's easy. It's low-hanging fruit. But here's what happens as the kid the kid starts growing up. How do you show that kid that you love them? How do you actually demonstrate that love to the kid? I don't mean you're coming home and paying bills. I don't mean that. What is it? To do that, you let the kid go, right? Just let the kid start walking, right? To show that kid, I love you so much. And that vision of me loving you means you're walking. I want you to walk so badly. I'm going to let you walk, right? I'm going to risk you falling in your face as a toddler just so you can walk because I love you that much. So you let them go. Great. That's toddler level. They hit teenage years and all that stuff. They start telling you all these kind of things and they get older. And all of a sudden somebody wants to do this and that. It's against your will. It's against your religion. It's against your this. It's against your that. But for them, it's for them. That they need to go out and have that experience because it's for them. Ultimate form of love. I've got to let you go. So I let you go even further. So all of a sudden you start looking at this idea. This is where the philosopher in me comes out, right? Of distance. That love is a function of distance, right? That thing where to that higher level of love, that big love is a function of distance, right? The letting you go sort of thing. Without that annoying neighbor you have, you won't know something about yourself. So that neighbor is just as much you, right? So you depend on that dude as much as he depends on you, kind of thing. There's this distance function about love that people don't get. So because I don't get it, it's easy for me to go hate some guy in Palestine, or hate some guy in Israel, or hate some guy in some tribe somewhere, because my father's people come from here, and my mother, that routine. So when I talk about this idea of out of many we are one, it's a very hard love to look at. It's not the easy thing of, oh, I love you like my daughter or my son or something, or my wife or something. That's not it. So back to the front. Out of many, we are one. I remember the mission. It keeps me focused. It keeps me grounded, right? So it doesn't matter how busy I am, how stressed I am. Anybody who's looking for some light, anybody who needs help, and if I can touch that and add value, I make myself available. I don't kill myself. I don't carry this deep sense of responsibility to go save every single thing. No, it's just if I can't, I do. Period. Because it's for me. It's a very selfish thing in a way. It's for me. Out of many, we are one. If I'm helping you, I'm helping me. And that has proven time after time. So I also support myself too with, like you said, this priming thing, right? Every morning I drop my kids off. I tell them the same thing in the car. I say, hey, say the thing I like, say that thing. And they say, Dad. I say, come on, say the thing. And they say, my life is magical. My life is beautiful, and great things are supposed to happen to me. Every morning, this is our routine. My life is magical. My life is beautiful, and great things are supposed to happen. Prime yourself. Prime yourself. I teach them these little things because, and I make, and especially, and sometimes you're arguing in the morning about something, and when they're all angry at me in the car, I say the thing, and nobody will say. I said, hey guys, now is the most important time to say that thing. It's easy to say that when your life is going well, where things are great. It's very difficult when Dad is angry at you, when Dad yells at you about smacking your brother or something, and then they all say reluctantly, So we start with little things like that, and little lessons like the most interesting thing in the world is not what happened to you, it's what you do next. Little things like little tidbits, because I'm trying to insulate them. And as I remind them, they remind me, here's what happened. We're in a car, something happened. I think some fight broke out over something trivial. And I got upset, just not yelling, but just fundamentally upset. And I actually forgot our routine. And I was driving, my daughter says to me, Dad, you're so angry, you forgot the thing. I said, what are you talking about now? She said, you forgot the thing. And I said, wow. So I said, yep, I said, my life is magical, my life is beautiful, and great things are supposed to happen to me. So she brought me back, and she's 8. And that changed my whole day. So that's part of the thing too, choosing your emotional destiny. So I treat every day like a lifetime, whereby, hey, if 10 o'clock if my day is over at 10, 11, 12, how do I want to feel at 10? Great, I want to feel accomplished. I want to feel loved, whatever. I choose my emotional destiny for the morning. So out of many, we are one, right? My life is magical, my life is beautiful, great things are supposed to happen to me. And I choose my day. I choose, hey, today is about progress. So I don't mean massive steps. Oh, I raise a Series A or something like that. No, it's about, you know what? Hey, I was able to complete more here than this, or of gratitude. Wow, I got more coffee in the cup. I don't drink coffee, but people drink coffee. I got an extra meat of coffee, whatever it is. I got an extra something, but somebody didn't cut me off in traffic today. I'm grateful, and I hold on to that feeling. These micro feelings. I look out for them every throughout the day. So by the end of my day, my lifetime, all right, since a day is a lifetime, I feel accomplished. And I sit there and say, yo, I'm grateful for that sense of progress today. And that begins to build this momentum. So you take gratefulness in small doses and it becomes this massive ball of something that has insulated you for next week, or because next week something will come that reminds you why you should be grateful, and then you've already had the momentum building. So that's it. Again, these ounces are sort of long, but they're layered, right? They're layered because there's a lot going on in a simple question you're asking, But that's how I do it. You got to stay true to your stuff like that. That's how I do it. Joe Dispenza talks about this. He's like, these are all ways to turn your mind into a map of the future. Your mind should begin to look like a map of the future and not an anchor to the past. So I think that's what happens. A lot of people are just reliving the same day. They're doing the same day over and over. And yeah, they have different clothes on, a new earring, a new pair of boots, new this, new that, but they're living the same day over and over. You live the same day over and over. It's the same experience over and over. Same experience over and over is going to give you the same emotion over and over. That same emotion will create another experience, which will be the same, which will create the same emotion, which will be the same. And you're playing this thing out, for 12 months, for 36 months. The next thing you know, it's 4 years and 5 years, and you're still complaining about the guy who left you 5 years ago. You know what? He's married. He has 3 kids. You're all here drowning on a 10-year-old cup of water. This whole routine. So finding ways and tools and rituals to turn your mind, again, Dispenza, into a map of the future. And it's possible because now you have to start living in the feeling of the thing is done already. I love this whole concept of not just believing in it, but you gotta believe it in. You believe it in. You believe in the sense of gratitude you want to achieve, or the sense of love that's coming your way. So much so that you're acting out of that feeling. Guess what? You start creating new pathways in your brain, and your brain starts looking for that. Psycho-cybernetics, right? Same thing as that kid, the whole self-image thing. Right? That's what it is all about. Your brain and really your mind becomes this like the servo mechanism is out there seeking out love because you've put it out there. You're living in that whole thing, So when I talk like this, I tell people, guys, this is the inner game. If you go back, any kind of teaching, spiritual talks about this. Whether you're Christian, even the Christian, I talk to Christian guys and say, listen, the only thing Jesus talked about was that if you want to talk about it. The guy basically said this: I came here, I'm doing some really tight things. And these tight things I'm doing, you can do it too, and better. That's the only thing, the gospel, you should even walk away from that thing. If you're believing that whole thing, right? Guess what? What was the whole gospel about? Even the books of Thomas, the one that discovered, with the Nag Hammadi library. Guess what it talked about? This whole idea of believing it in. Your mind as a powerful tool. Your imagination as really the God thing. So neuroscience today is proving that out. Once you can begin to change the way your brain fires on wires and you create new pathways, you've turned your mind into a map of the future, and you will seek out those opportunities. But if you're just reliving the same story, guess what you're going to get? The same emotion, the same experiences which keep showing up. The same guy will keep leaving you. The same job will keep escaping you, The same house will keep, that whole jazz. So again, all these little things we're talking about. So I teach my kids today, you got to work on your day early in the day, before your day starts working on you. That's the real thing right there. Helping you begin to play this in a game. So you become efficient and proficient.
One thing I just wanted to say, and this is just a little feedback on the videos that you put out. A lot of people that put out, I'd say, inspirational videos don't say who they are. And you are the one person that says at the end of every video or every audio,
my name is Angelo and I'm the motivator. Yeah. That's right.
I actually love that. And it's almost like a theme song.
So you know what I came from? It came from that mirror experience as well too. Because once I had it in my mind, like, I still have a dream. That's why I said to myself in the mirror, I said, my name is Angelo and I'm the motivator. And that was it. It came from that mirror experience, yeah. And ever since then, I always say it because it's me reminding myself of that impact. I'm the motivator. You have a choice. I can be this person. That's why I ever give people the option. Now you can see it. I've given you a perspective or where you've been. Go ahead. So that's the real reason I call myself the motivator.
Is there anything you want like the listeners to you want them to go somewhere?
I mean, my YouTube channel, I can go out. It's just my name, Gabriel Angelo Ajayi, and certainly check out Pep Talk. I think Pep Talk is really where a lot of the value is coming together. There's a lot that's going to come out of Pep Talk. And the one thing I would say, I was doing an interview the other day, and somebody asked me about my favorite book. We're wrapping up and said, so tell people about your favorite book. What's your favorite book? I hate to recommend books because I don't think it's that useful. It's like high school when they made us read all these Shakespeare things and all these dead off. And it's like, I think that stuff is good literature. It was wasted on people who don't understand it, So yeah. I think it turns off a lot of people. So I hate to recommend any kind of a book, but I will recommend an experience, So if anybody is out there listening, I recommend going into one of the hardest things for you to face. Go with that experience. Spend some time with that experience. And let's see what book shows up. Let's see what author, what speaker, what experience shows up. I think that's the best way to do this, again, when the student is ready, the teacher shows up, sort of thing. So I recommend experiences, and they're all in you. So pick one. That's difficult for you.